President Biden's levels, funding levels that Democrats voted for. By the way, House Republicans could have come with a table, a CR with $1.5 trillion of spending reductions to match the $1.5 trillion of spending increase the Democrats wanted. And now there'd be areas of compromise. But the House Republicans basically said, here's the deal. Let's not shut down government. But let's not make federal government workers pay for our dysfunction. So they passed a clean CR, the President Biden's funding levels. So again, that's been voted down 12 times, regrettably. But let me set that aside. I found out about the Senator from Maryland's proposal last night. I got the language this morning. I've got the bill here. And first of all, I kind of chuckled because the name of the bill is I've actually got the true Warren Buffett tax, and we ought to talk about that later on. You might find that interesting. But so he's taken my bill, the Shutdown Fairness Act. Now his bill is the true Shutdown Fairness Act. And again, I haven't done a word count comparison, but it's probably like 95+% of the Shutdown Fairness Act. That's a good thing. That shows there's a lot of areas of agreement. I come from the private sector. You don't get a whole lot accomplished arguing all the time. It's all about finding areas of agreement. I got a product, you want to buy it, now we'll haggle over the price. Okay, so I got a product, you want to buy it, now we need to haggle over the price. Now, the three areas of the differences in these bills, I think I've got this right. I'd ask the Senator from Maryland to confirm that. Your bill is only for this fiscal year. My bill would just end this, punishing federal workers for our dysfunction forever. I mean, I think we should make it permanent. The Senator from Maryland's bill includes furloughed employees. Now, the fact of the matter is, when all this is said and done, when we finally end this dysfunction, we fund government through an appropriation, because the 2019 Government Fair Transparency or Fair Treatment Act, the Government Fair Treatment Act, they'll get paid anyway. So my bill is obviously targeted to the people we're forcing to work, but I'm not necessarily opposed to paying furloughed workers as well. That's something we can talk about, okay? The last difference is it limits reduction in force. Now, I come from the private sector. Nobody likes to terminate employees. Nobody. But in the private sector, when a business is facing bankruptcy, sometimes business owners are forced to do that to preserve the other jobs. The federal government is $38 trillion in debt. I don't think we should limit the president's ability, the chief executive's ability to properly manage the federal government and make the tough decisions sometimes to reduce the workforce, cut out some government functions. But again, that's something we can talk about. So again, I think, in fairness of the more than 2 million in federal employees that are now being forced to work because they're termed accepted, but that means they're essential. They're protecting our nation. They're protecting our safety and security. They're writing Social Security checks. To see that they get their paycheck so they don't have to work DoorDash, so they don't have to go to food banks, so they're not under that stress. I am asking in good faith, let's figure out how to get that done. Now, I mean, I could propose, take this, I'll change the name of mine, by the way, if you want to call it the true, because I think it's the true Shutdown Fairness Act. I would be, today, right now, I'd be willing to add furloughed workers, because we're going to pay them anyway. Would you, I'm just asking, would you substitute your bill, take my bill, substitute it in? I've actually got my staff to write the language to do this. Red Line's probably not ready for prime time. We really need to get through Ledge Council, that kind of stuff. But would you take my bill, add furloughed workers, say it's a done deal? Is that something you'd accept here today?
I'm happy to, if you're yielding the floor to me.
Yes.
The short answer is we do want to pay all federal employees because none of them should be punished. but we also don't want them to be fired and riffed during this period of time. I mean, you said in the private sector, people don't like to fire employees. I know, Senator, you've read the remarks of Russ Vought, the head of OMB. He wants to visit, quote, trauma on federal employees, and he wants to fire a lot of them. He has said so.
That's, again,
but that's an important piece here, right?
So, because Senator, again, I'm trying to keep this. Let's not argue, okay? Let's focus on areas of agreement. So even reduction in force. Okay, again, I think we probably have a philosophical agreement there. I'm not associating myself with anybody else's remarks. I'm just talking about that's something that I think reasonable people can disagree with. And I think reasonable people can come to an accommodation. Again, when we're talking about making sure that 2.8, I think is about the number, 2.8 million federal employees aren't worried about getting a next paycheck. I mean, that so overwhelms quite honestly, the smaller differences about the length of the bill or, what reduction in force. Again, and I'm willing to come a long way.
Senator,
I'm willing to come a long way in terms of including furloughed workers. So again, what I'm suggesting is the way to do it. And by the way, this could be a wonderful example for this body. Working on a piece of legislation that, again, you bring it to the floor. We filed it. I know it got Rule 14, but we're doing it the right way. We're going to ask for a cloture vote on it. Get it on the floor, open it up to amendments, perfect it. See what the body of the Senate wants to do with this piece of legislation that, again, we probably agree 95% of it or higher. The way to do it is when I offer my bill and we vote on cloture, vote for cloture. Let's get on the bill. Let's start discussing today. I mean, maybe if we're so successful, maybe if we find the differences are so slight, we can pass it by UC later in the day. But, we do need to take this back to our conferences. We do need to go to ledge staff. We need to perfect this. It'll probably take more time. But again, passing it by unanimous consent is not the way to do it. It just isn't. I mean, I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate the dialogue. And that's not what I'm asking. In all sincerity, for the benefit of those 2.8 million workers, our military, our law enforcement, let's take that burden off them today. Let's give them some hope to know this body is going to finally do something in a nonpartisan, I call it a nonpartisan way, that we all agree on. We're going to iron out our differences the way you would generally do it, the way it used to be done, by getting onto a bill, voting for cloture, having the will of the Senate work its way, and then hopefully pass it early next week. That would be my suggestion. Again, I'd be willing to do it today. I don't think we could probably handle that because there's things to discuss. That's all I'm asking.
If gentlemen will yield, look, thank you. Look, it'd be great to work this out because there seems to be some agreement that federal employees should not be the ones to bear the burden of a decision they had nothing to do with. I see the Republican leaders here with us on the floor. I think the best way to proceed would be to delay moving forward on the cloture vote on the motion to proceed on your bill, and let's sit down and let's talk about whether or not we can find that common ground. We may not be that far apart. I will just say to the senator, that if you give the president the authority, as your proposal currently does, to decide who to send home and furlough and punish, and it sounds like you're willing to change that, but here's the scenario I worry about. If you listen to Russ Vought and the president, they would just fire those people during the shutdown. That's what they're doing. In fact, they're illegally firing people during the shutdown.
Again, Senator, I really didn't want to come and argue.
Okay, well, why don't we sit down? Why don't we sit down together?
I have to dispute that because even the National Active and Retired Federation Employees Association, who's endorsed my bill, says the bill does not single out favored political functions over disfavored ones. And you understand, under the Anti-Deficiency Act, under the opinions from the Office of Legal Counsel, accepted employees, it's pretty well standard. There may be some tweaks back and forth, which is what you give the latitude of the executive branch. Again, I'm willing to sit down. I'm sure the Republican Conference is willing to sit down and go, okay, What should we do? I think Congress has given way too much authority to the executive branch. I don't mind dialing that back a little bit. But again, the way to approach that is let's get on the bill, let's talk about it, let's offer amendments, amendments that pass by voice vote, and let's get it done. There's a lot of pressure on all of us. We all want to get this done. But again, passing by unanimous consent is not the way to get it done. The way to get it done is the way the process should work. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful to actually see the process work in the Senate? Again, I realize you don't like, you don't agree 100% on my bill. So
I would love to see the process work.
And then let's sit down in good faith, let's hammer out amendments, and let's get the thing passed next week. Let's do that. That's all I'm asking. Again, I honestly hate to object to this. I don't want to, okay? But again, this is not the way to pass it. So again, I'll speak to my bill. I know we've got to get votes for that kind of stuff. But again, truthfully, I'm in as good a faith as I possibly can be. We have to get this done. And the way to do that is vote to get on the bill. Let's sit down and talk in good faith, and let's see and hammer out what it might be pretty minor differences when all's said and done. Okay? But with that,
well let me just say, Mr. President, just to say to the Senator Johnson, I'm more than happy to sit down with you. I think we should do that maybe later today, get our teams together, see if we can resolve some of these points. Because if we have the shared view that, number one, no federal employee should be punished for something they had nothing to do with, and that at least for the period of the shutdown, the president should not be able to fire additional people, which is, I think you well know, and this was partly considered by the federal court already, the president actually has less authority to do in a shutdown than when the government's open. But I don't want to debate these issues on the floor right now.
Sure.
I am more than happy to try and sit down with your team and see if we can
Let me
resolve.
quick address that. I think this brinkmanship has got to end here. I mean, I've been here 15 years. We should have passed 180 appropriation bills. Before the start of the fiscal year, we've passed 6. Again, a lot of people working in good faith to do that, okay? It's obviously broken. We've got to start working on appropriation and budget reform. We've got to start working on that together, okay? But my guess is part of what's happening with reduction in force is that brinkmanship, trying to get you folks to just agree to what you've done 13 times. Just open up the government, then we'll talk, okay? We're more than open to talk. But anyway, so again, I'm literally begging you, please.
Well,
when we vote on cloture, vote to get on the bill, and then let's go through the amendment process, and let's get it done quick. Again, there's not that big a difference. We can get this done, but again, I hate to do this, but with that, I will object and just, again, beg.
Objection heard.
Let's get on the bill.
Mr. President.
Senator from Maryland.
As I said to the senator from Wisconsin, I'm happy to sit down with him and his team to see if we can put together a proposal based on the principle that no federal employee should have to bear the burden and the pain of a decision they had nothing to do with, as well as many of these federal contractors who are also involved. So I welcome the chance to sit down with the senator from Wisconsin. I also hope that the President of the United States will sit down with Democrats to resolve the overall issue and open the government. That way, we wouldn't even have to go through this exercise right now. With that, I want to yield the floor to my colleague from Maryland, Senator Alsobrooks.
Senator from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. President, thank you, first of all, to my colleague, Senator Chris Van Hollen, for yielding. And I also want to thank the senior senator from Maryland for his work on this legislation, the True Shutdown Fairness Act. Senator Van Hollen is a tremendous partner on this critical issue and an advocate for the thousands of federal workers in our great state. Maryland is home to 494,000 federal workers and federal contractors and 34,000 uniformed military personnel. Many of these Marylanders have spent their lives serving their fellow Americans, fighting to defend our country, ensuring our food and water are safe, making sure our parents and grandparents get their Social Security checks, and researching cures to cancer. That they have been characterized by this administration as an enemy worthy of trauma is repugnant. If you live in Maryland, you know a federal worker. They are your friends, they're your neighbors, they are the people like my grandmother, Sarah Daisy. You see, Sarah Daisy worked as a housekeeper in Washington, D.C., but dreamed her entire life of working in the federal government. Back then, and many will recall, she had to pass a civil servants exam, which included a typing test in order to work in the federal government. But she couldn't afford a typewriter and didn't know how to type. So she taped a white piece of paper on her refrigerator. She drew a keyboard on that piece of paper and stood in front of her refrigerator in her one-bedroom apartment every night and taught herself the keystrokes. Well, Sarah Daisy passed the exam and got herself a job working in the federal government. It was her dream. She worked in the Hoffman building. She'd always tell me about it. I could vividly remember her saying that she was so proud that she walked past this general and that general in the hallway. She was very, very proud. And I am honored to be her legacy and to be fighting for the countless Marylanders just like Sarah Daisy who are being so cruelly targeted by this administration. Now, thanks to Republicans in this body who have chosen to follow this president's order and shut down the government, many of our federal workers are working without pay, still in service to our country. The rest have been furloughed to no fault of their own. Our ask today is simple: pay them for the jobs that they were hired to do. We are now in day 23 of this Republican shutdown, and let us not mince words. Republicans hold the keys to the kingdom. They have control over the White House. They have majorities in this chamber and in the House. And what have they done with that power? Has the cost of your groceries gone down? No. Has the cost of housing gone down? No. Has our economy gotten stronger? Absolutely not. What have they done? Shut down the government. That's it. This shutdown is on them. We know it, they know it, and the American people know it. It's been 23 days of this administration refusing to come to the table in good faith and negotiate a plan to keep the government open and make sure that health care is affordable and accessible for millions of Americans. It's been 23 days of this administration using the shutdown as an excuse to further target federal workers who are my constituents. My state is home to 494,000 federal workers and contractors. All of them are feeling the pain from this president's refusal to do what he supposedly loves to do best: make a deal. Right before the shutdown began, the very sinister Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought instructed agencies to use a shutdown as an opportunity to issue permanent government layoffs. Vought then began circulating a memo that would seem to challenge the legality of furloughed workers receiving back pay. By the way, Congress passed a bipartisan law ensuring their back pay during the last Trump administration, yet this administration continues to disregard the rule of law. Just last week, Vought ominously tweeted, "The rifts have begun." He then directed federal agencies to begin illegally terminating thousands of federal employees. This is a man who is outwardly and very sinisterly, in a very sinister way, taken pleasure in harming federal workers. Hours later, President Trump and Secretary Kennedy fired more than 1,700 more people from the Department of Health and Human Services, including staffers that work to prevent measles outbreaks, before admitting that they had sent nearly half of the notices to employees at the CDC in error. Imagine that. With the family to support, you get a notice that you're fired before getting another email hours later telling you that your RIF has been rescinded. The chaos and the cruelty is unconscionable. Thousands of dedicated civil servants have been shown the door by an administration who, in the words of the Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought, has said that it is his intention. He said that he hopes that federal workers will no longer want to come to work because they will be in so much trauma. He also said that he hoped that they would feel like villains. So there has been a systemic dismantling of our federal government, a witch hunt targeting patriotic people across this country who raised their hand to serve the American people. All of this chaos is needless. It is a manufactured crisis. So many Marylanders would like to show up to work today and serve the American people, but they have been left behind by this administration. Hundreds of thousands of civil servants have been either furloughed or forced to work without pay, all because this president has decided to shut down the government instead of lower health care costs for Americans. We need to ensure our workers are paid. The truth of the matter is that we are now just 9 days away from open enrollment beginning, when Americans will begin to sign up for their health care plans for next year. And they are already facing sticker shock. Even with the state stepping in, a 60-year-old couple living in Salisbury, Maryland, making $90,000 a year, will pay $1,100 more per month for health care. They will have to pay $1,100 more per month next year. For a family of four in Maryland making around $128,000 a year, and for context, that's the combined salary of a firefighter and a teacher, they will be paying $1,427 per month next year versus $916 this year. If the president and our colleagues on the other side of the aisle get their wish and allow the tax credits to expire, nearly 90,000 Marylanders could be priced out of their health insurance altogether. So we will keep fighting for health care because it's what Americans deserve. But this chaos is unsustainable, and we must have faith that soon this season will be over. I know soon there will be a morning, not like the morning that we have awakened to today. Today's morning brings about chaos and fear and confusion and division. But I know soon there will be another morning where Americans will wake up across our country and not fear that they will not be able to afford rent, groceries, and health care. Right now, it is our duty as members of the United States Senate to pay our federal workers. Our government will cease to function if we do not, and the damage, I fear, is irreparable. Yet, just like Russ Vogt, my colleagues today are picking winners and losers, putting forth legislation that would only make sure that accepted workers are paid, instead of the entirety of the federal and military workforce that has been held hostage by this Republican shutdown. We cannot cherry pick who gets paid during a shutdown based on our perception of the political affiliations of our patriotic civil servants. We must pass legislation that ensures our federal workers receive the paychecks that they have earned. Around 750,000 federal employees have been furloughed this month at no fault of their own. Hundreds of thousands of these employees live in our region, in Maryland, in Virginia, and the district. Senator Johnson's bill would ignore these dedicated workers, leaving them to continue to go without a paycheck while President Trump refuses to get back to the bargaining table. They cannot afford to wait for the president to tire of throwing celebratory picnics or tearing down the White House for a gilded ballroom. They cannot afford to wait for Speaker Johnson and House Republicans to actually show back up to work. In case some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have forgotten, federal workers don't just serve Democrats. They serve every American citizen who needs their help. Researching cures for cancer isn't just for people who live in blue states. Making sure that people get their Social Security checks isn't some left-wing conspiracy. I would assume that everyone in this body agrees that Americans should get paid for their labor. Well, if you believe that, you will support our bill. It took courage and dedication for my grandmother, Sarah Daisy, to learn a new skill in order to serve her country. And each day, our armed service members and civil servants show courage and dedication to serve and protect our country from harm, to make it a better place. Let's show courage today. Work together and pay all federal workers, because we all know federal workers are Republicans, Democrats, and independents. They are not political pawns. They are patriots. I yield.
Mr. President.
Senator from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that myself and Senator Johnson be permitted to complete our remarks prior to the scheduled roll call vote.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today to request unanimous consent to pass my Military and Federal Employees Protection Act. I understand my colleague from Wisconsin objected to Senator Van Hollen's proposal. And while I support my colleague from Maryland's legislation, I'm now going to offer an alternative that is very, very straightforward. It seems to me that we all agree in this chamber that we want to pay our federal workers. My bill will do just that and nothing else. The Military and Federal Employee Protection Act provides pay for members of the military, federal employees, and federal contractors who have been denied paychecks during the government shutdown. So let's be honest. Let's be honest why we're all here. The shutdown is not an accident. Republicans right now are refusing to negotiate with Democrats on a bipartisan solution to help address the health care crisis. And now, as a result of that, federal workers are paying a price. My bill ensures that no worker is left behind during this difficult period. Congress has already guaranteed that all employees receive their paycheck when a shutdown ends. In 2019, Congress voted overwhelmingly for a bill to provide all employees back pay once a shutdown ends, and actually President Trump signed that bill into law. So the government is already required to pay all of its workers. What my bill does is very simply just ensure that these workers can actually now pay their bills that are coming due this month. Those bills aren't going to be postponed. They need to be paid this month. And while I appreciate my colleagues' interest to ensure that all workers are paid, I appreciated the comments that Senator Johnson made. My legislation will provide pay for all service members, federal employees, and contractors that have missed paychecks due to the shutdown. But it doesn't do other stuff that his bill does, which gives President Trump an unlimited blank check to pick winners and losers. We're just focused on what I think all of us agree on. This legislation that I'm offering is the absolute simplest path forward to pay our workers. We all say we agree on this, so let's just pass this bill now, get workers their paycheck. I'm going to continue to work to end this shutdown and address the health care crisis. But in the meantime, let's protect our service members and our federal employees, not put other stuff in the bill, just pay them so they can meet their bills as they arise. I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S3043, introduced earlier today, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
The senator from Wisconsin is recognized.
Mr. President, again, I'll condense my remarks because so much of what I want to say I already said to the senator from Maryland. I think it's interesting that the senator from Michigan supports the senator from Maryland's bill, which is a more comprehensive bill, I think, as I, again, only saw this now, but hopefully I get it right. But I think yours is just limited to the time period from the shutdown until the bill is passed, and then we're in the same situation. If the shutdown continues, hopefully it won't. There's a way of doing it. Just vote for the clean CR. But again, I really don't want to object to these bills, but in this case, understand that the way to pass this into law, and as I was speaking to the senator from Maryland as he exited the chamber, wouldn't this be a wonderful demonstration for the Senate, for Congress, for America, of how you pass a piece of legislation? You take a bill, again, I realize you don't 100% agree with my Shutdown Fairness Act, fine, but I think we're probably 90+% agreement on it. So you vote for cloture to get on the bill, then you work in good faith on the areas of disagreement. let the Senate work its will through an amendment process. And again, this is a pretty small little piece of legislation. It's an incredibly important piece of legislation, incredibly important, because we all agree we don't want to make federal employees pay for the dysfunction of this body. So let's first demonstrate that this body can actually function the way it's intended to function, which is write a bill, get it filed, have the leader file cloture on it, have the body vote to proceed to the bill with 60 votes. You don't need all of you. We need about, we need 7 of you, 8 of you, okay? Have 8 of you agree to get on the bill, then we'll work in good faith, and we'll make sure that we don't make federal employees pay for our dysfunction. So again, I do have to object, but again, I'm urging, I'm begging colleagues from the other side of the aisle, vote for cloture, and let's iron out these differences, and let's make the federal employees, let's make them whole. But I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from Michigan is recognized.
So I appreciate the comments from my colleague from Wisconsin. We have worked together on a lot of bills together. We have come together to find common ground on some, at times, contentious issues. And I agree about the 90% comment that Senator Johnson mentioned. What I'm actually proposing right now is that 90%. It is really simple. This is as simple a bill as you can get. We can show the American people that we come together on a bill that's really straightforward, no gotchas, no language that might trip people up. It's simply pay folks, make sure that they're made whole as this passes so they can pay their bills, and then we can continue to deal with the other issues of the day. But I think this would be an example of bipartisan coming together unanimously to say that here is a bill that will pay service members and federal employees and contractors, make them whole so they can make their bills. We don't need to have a protracted process. This is a simple issue if we focus on the 90% we agree on, and that's what this bill is. It is the 90%, and I hope we could just pass it today and put the minds at ease of hundreds of thousands of folks all across the country.
Senator from Wisconsin.
So I think now we're going to proceed to the cloture vote on the Shutdown Fairness Act. Just in response real quick, it's unrealistic to expect almost any piece of legislation to pass by unanimous consent a bill that's just been introduced that exact morning. No matter how simple it is, there's going to be people that are going to object. So that's why the process is file a bill, file for cloture, to proceed to, get on the bill, have an amendment process, and go through that process. Now, it can go very quickly, but again, doing this by unanimous consent is just unreasonable. And so that's unfortunate. So again, the solution here is vote for cloture to get on the bill, the Shutdown Fairness Act. Now, I will try and keep my remarks reasonably short. I was allotted 20 minutes, but I know people are already here on the floor to vote, so I'm mindful of that. But just quick little history of my experience here since I got here in 2011. This is our 4th shutdown now. We're in the 23rd day. We've had 55 continuing resolutions. And most of them, again, I haven't voted for all of them. I've voted for many of them. Other colleagues on both sides have voted for those. I mean, generally, the fight is over, let's just have a clean CR. Let's not junk it up with policies. And there's, that's the loggerhead here. One side refused to just do a clean CR. We've had 12 either increases or suspensions of the debt ceiling, and we've just surpassed $38 trillion in debt. I realize people work in good faith on the budget process. I'm on the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee. I see the former chair and ranking member of the Appropriations Committee on the floor here. The sad fact is, since I've been here, we should have passed 180 appropriation bills prior to the end of the fiscal year that we're going to fund. We've only passed 6. That's a 96.7% failure rate. It's clearly broken. The budget and appropriation process is broken. Rather than spending weeks arguing over how to get the government back open, I'd much rather sit down in a nonpartisan way and go, how can we fix this? Can we go to 2-year appropriation cycles? I mean, what can we do the budget? I mean, I'd much rather talk about that and understand that there's a lot of bipartisan agreement on proposals, but we'll never get to that if we're literally mired. Last year, it took us 6 months to finally fund the government with a continuing resolution. This is beyond ridiculous. So again, this is a bipartisan problem here. I'm not placing blame anywhere. It's a bipartisan problem. Now, unfortunately, we haven't passed any appropriations. Pointed out before, the Democrats have forwarded 13 times during the Biden administration for a clean CR at Biden spending levels. Now they're saying no, they won't. And of course, their leader, in doing that, on January 16, 2024, said, quote, passing a clean CR this week is important for 2 main reasons. First, passing the CR will avert a harmful and unnecessary government shutdown. No reasonable member of either side, Democrat or Republican, wants a government shutdown. Now, that's not Leader Thune saying that. That's then Leader Schumer saying that. Now he's obviously completely changed his tune. Now, I did point this out. This is important to understand, because the other side is saying, well, why don't you sit down and negotiate and compromise? I mean, the House could have passed a CR with $1.5 trillion in spending cuts to match the CR proposed by the Democrats of $1.5 trillion in new spending. Okay, there you go. Now you got something to compromise on. That's not what the House did. The House said, well, let's do what we've done 13 times under the Biden administration. Let's just pass a clean CR at Biden's level and really beg the Democrats to say yes, but they haven't been willing to do that. Again, I know people are waiting to vote. I'm not going to talk about the issue, the fact that Obamacare is causing premiums to skyrocket and what they're demanding in terms of extending the enhanced subsidies that were supposed to be temporary. They set the expiration date, but it's Obamacare that's causing premiums to be unaffordable, and they want those enhanced premiums to mask the failure of Obamacare. But I won't get into detail on that. I will talk about, this is day 23. We are forcing about 2.8 million federal workers to work. Military, law enforcement, people who write Social Security checks, air traffic controllers, keeping our skies safe. But we're not paying them. That's absurd. Now, what's even more absurd is they will get paid. Whether they're working or furloughed, they will get paid because of the Government Fair Treatment Act of 2019. Once this ends, I'm assuming it'll end with an appropriation, they'll get paid. So the Government Fairness Act, all it does is recognize that reality. It shouldn't cost a dime. CBO has a alternate universe score on this. There's 0 score. This doesn't cost the federal government a dime. Just pay the workers that are being forced to pay. Pay them now, not later. Incredibly common sense. I'll end with a surprising support letter I got from the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association. They pretty well bat down all the arguments against this bill. Doesn't change the government's obligation to pay furloughed employees. They'll get paid. It does not single out favored political functions over disfavored ones. Again, President Trump is by and large honoring the past opinions of Office of Legal Counsel, Anti-Discrepancy Act. They say they don't believe is empowering the administration to pick and choose what activities it carries out. And includes, say, the American public relies on the full scope of federal agency missions that are funded via appropriations, and political pressures that exist to advance appropriation bills in the first place will remain to encourage resolution. So that's no, we're not there yet, I'm sorry. I'll conclude quickly, okay? The bottom line is, as I talked to the senator from Maryland, the way to pass this law, the way to protect federal workers, isn't with the unanimous consent request on a bill nobody's ever seen. It's to vote for cloture on the Shutdown Fairness Act. Now, let's work out the differences. We agree on 95% of it. Let's work out those differences. Vote for cloture. We get this passed, I think, early next week. With that, I'll conclude my remarks on that. I should be speaking about 5 minutes on a wonderful nomination, Rebecca Tableson for the 7th Circuit, but I know everybody wants to vote. She did a wonderful job in the judiciary. She's a highly qualified lawyer. She'll make a wonderful judge for the 7th Circuit. I urge all my colleagues to vote for her cloture on her confirmation. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a closed debate on the motion to proceed to Calendar 191 S3012, a bill to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of accepted federal employees for periods of work performed during a lapse in appropriations and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators.
The question, by unanimous consent, the mandatory quorum call has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the motion to proceed to Senate Bill 3012 to appropriate funds for pay and allowances of accepted federal employees for periods of work performed during a lapse in appropriations and for other purposes shall be brought to a close? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso. Aye. Thank you. Mr. Bennett. Houston. Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, thank you, Mr. Cassidy, okay, I got you. Thank you. Ms. Collins. Thank you. Mr. Coons. Mr. Cornyn. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Cruz. Thank you. Mr. Curtis. Mr. Daines. Ms. Duckworth. Mr. Durbin. Ms. Ernst. Mr. Fetterman. Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Gallego. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Haggerty. Ms. Hassan. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Hickenlooper. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Husted. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Justice. Mr. Kane. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kim. Mr. King. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Lankford. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lujan. Ms. Lummis. Mr. Markey. Mr. Marshall. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McCormick. Mr. Merkley. Mrs. Moody. Mr. Moran. Mr. Marino. Mr. Mullen. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, yes, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Capito, Cassidy, Crapo, Grassley, Haggerty, Hawley, Husted, Johnson, Lee, Moody, Moran, Marino, Ricketts, Scott of South Carolina, Sullivan, and Thune. Senators voting in the negative: Baldwin, Bennett, Cortez Masto, Durbin, Gillibrand, Hassan, Heinrich, King, Lujan, Murray, Peters, Reed, Rosen, Schatz, Schiff, Schumer, and Smith. Mrs. Britt, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Kim, no. Mr. McCormick, aye. Mr. Markey, no. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Mr. Sanders? No. Mrs. Hyde-Smith? Aye. Mr. Cornyn? Aye. Mr. Scott of Florida? Aye. Mr. Wyden? No. Mr. Kane? No. Mr. Warner? Mr. Warner? No. Ms. Alsobrooks? No. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mrs. Shaheen? No. Mr. Hickenlooper? No. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Ms. Cantwell? No. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. Welch? No. Mr. Bozeman, aye. Mr. Langford, aye. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Marshall, aye. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mr. Merkley, no. Ms. Collins? Aye. Mr. Rounds? Aye. Mr. Coons? No. Mr. Whitehouse? No. Mr. Kramer? Aye. Mr. Kelly? No. Ms. Blunt Rochester? No. Ms. Hirono? No. Mr. Fetterman? Aye. Mr. Banks. Aye. Mr. Risch. Aye. Mr. Cotton. Aye. Ms. Slotkin. No. Mr. Cruz. Aye.
Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker. No. Mr. Gallego. Mr. Gallego. No. Mr. Daines. Mr. Daines. Aye. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen. No. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell. Aye. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Tuberville. Aye. Ms. Warren. Ms. Warren. No. Ms. Duckworth. Ms. Duckworth. No. Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen. Aye. Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham. Aye. Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Warnock. Mr. Warnock, aye. Mr. Ossoff. Mr. Ossoff, aye. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Ms. Lummis. Ms. Lummis, aye. Mr. Justice. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker, aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 45. 3/5 of the Senate duly chosen and sworn not having voted in the affirmative. The motion is not agreed to. The majority leader is recognized.
I enter a motion to reconsider.
The motion is entered. Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session and resume consideration of the following nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, the judiciary, Stephen Chad Meredith of Kentucky to be United States District Judge for the Eastern District of Kentucky.
The question is on the nomination. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester. Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer. Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Banks, Barrasso, Bozeman, Britt, Budd, Cassidy, Collins, Kramer, Daines, Ernst, Graham, Grassley, Haggerty, Hoven, Langford, Lummis, McConnell, McCormick, Moreno, Mullen, Ricketts, Risch, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Wicker. Senators voting in the negative: Also Brooks, Blunt Rochester, Booker, Cantwell, King, Merkley, Murray, Ossoff, Reed, Schatz, Schumer, Shaheen, Slotkin, Smith, Warnock. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Curtis, aye. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mr. Kelly, no.